Flow Southeast High School. My name is Mr. Lentych. Most of y'all know who I am, and I know some of you freshmen will not. I handle the discipline here, and I'm also the athletic director. And part of our responsibility as a school in Whitfield County is to read through the discipline code book and explain some things and make sure you guys are aware of what the consequences could be. Now, before I get started, let me tell you about a couple things. One is you should have this blue discipline code book that you get every year. It's got all the same thing that I'm going to be reading. It's got all the rules and the consequences and that sort of thing in it. So if you have a question about something, you're not sure about something, ask me, refer to this, whichever one. But also in here, in the back, there's a page that you take home and you sign it and you have your parents sign it, and then you bring it back to school and give it to your SRT teacher. Okay, so make sure you do that. Teachers, you should also be passing around this discipline sign-off sheet. Each of you should have gotten one of these. Make sure each student signs their name to that to indicate that they've been through the discipline review. Now, with that said, before I get started into things that we don't want you to do, let me tell you about some things that I'd like to see you accomplish this year in terms of behavior. One is basically just have respect for each other. If you've got an issue with a student and you think this could be a negative or it's going to end badly, come talk to me about it. Have enough respect for yourself and that other student, and come talk to me. Come talk to Deputy Hayes, one of the female administrators, whatever. But come let us get some help for you, okay? See if we can intervene. Also, in terms of general behavior, just be courteous to one another. One of the things I want to see this year is I want to see us as a school do better in terms of how we present ourselves to each other and to the public. Now, namely, watch your language. Profanity, it's rude. A lot of people don't want to hear it. Please don't use it. Have enough respect for yourself and your classmates not to. In terms of behavior and bathrooms, let's try to keep our bathrooms cleaner this year. Clean up after yourself. Make sure you treat that area with respect. You have to go in there, other students have to go in there. Let's take care of it. So, just some little things like that go a long way. Lunchroom. When you're done with your lunch, don't expect somebody else, whether it's our janitors or whether it's some kids in Coach Kettering's class, don't depend on them to pick up your trash. You pick up your trash. Little things like that mean a lot in the environment of a school. I want this to be a great place for you to come to school. I want you to have a great school year. But take care of those positive things, and all these negative things we don't have to worry about, I promise you. All right, going ahead and looking through the discipline code book. Let's look at number one. This for you will be on page, well, there's not a page number, but if you turn to about the third page and it says students shall be free of any weapon, number one, that's where we'll start, and then we'll just go through it. The violation, number one, weapons. Possessing, using, handling, transmitting, carrying to, or having under control a weapon within a school safety zone, or at a school building, school function, at a school bus stop, or on school property, including in a vehicle or on a bus, or other transportation furnished by the school. This is prohibited. And this is defined as, and this is state law, any handgun, firearm, rifle, shotgun, or similar weapon, any explosive, compound, or incendiary device, or any other dangerous weapon is defined in the Georgia law, including a rocket launcher, bazooka, recoilless rifle, mortar, or hand grenade. The consequences: immediate suspension with hearing. A minimum 1 year expulsion from school will result unless a hearing officer, tribunal panel, or superintendent determines that a length of expulsion to be excessive given the circumstances and reduces the length of expulsion. If this happens, if you bring a weapon to school, the district attorney and other law enforcement officials and parents and guardians must be notified. Removal and arrest could result. Now, let me talk about some of the consequences as you hear me mention things. When you do certain things here at school, excluding having a weapon, you can have anything, because that's going to be an immediate suspension in a hearing. But other things, whether it's disruption in class or whatever, you could get anything from a warning, parent conference. You could end up having ISS. which is in-school suspension with Coach Durham. You could have OSS, which you're suspended out of school. You could be taken to a hearing. What that means is you go down to Student Services Center, and a hearing panel, another group of people, will decide your fate. And they can send you to crossroads, they can expel you from school, which in that case you would lose all your opportunity to get an education. So, just making you aware of some of the consequences. All right, weapons continued. Another type of weapon is B, any hazardous object, including any dirk, which is a type of knife, Bowie knife, switchblade knife, ballistic knife, or any other knife having a blade of 2 or more inches, straight edge razor, razor blade, spring stick, knuckles, whether made from metal, thermoplastic, wood, or other similar material, a blackjack, any bat, club, or any other bludgeoning type weapon, or any flailing instrument consisting of 2 or more rigid parts connected in such a manner as to allow them to swing freely, which may be known as nunchucks, or fighting chain, or any disc, or whatever configuration having at least 2 points or pointed blades, which is designed to be thrown or propelled, and which may be known as a throwing star, oriental dart, or any instrument of like kind, any non-lethal air gun, any stun gun or taser. Such term shall not include any of these instruments used for classroom work authorized by the teacher. Also can include any knife of any type with a blade length, any look-alike weapon, mace or pepper spray, tear gas or similar device, possessing, carrying to, having under control, bullets or ammunition. All that stuff that I just read is excluded from school, okay? I know that's confusing when you read the legality, the legal interpretation, you know what is written there, but what that means basically don't have it in school. The penalties for these are at my discretion, which means I get to decide that, okay? But it could include hearing and recommendation for suspension or expulsion. All right, number 2. Students shall refrain from being involved in an assault and or battery. And the violations are these. These are the things you can't do. A, verbal assault including threatened violence of teachers, administrators, or other school staff. B, touching or pushing another student. C, intentionally making physical contact with another student in a provocative manner. Provocative means to provoke someone, to try to get them to have a reaction. D, striking or threatening harm or violence to another student, including extortion and or hazing. E, battery, which results in serious bodily harm. The penalty for almost all those include, they're my discretion, with probable arrest. You can be arrested. I'm going to tell you this, 9 times out of 10 at our school, if you get into a fight and it's serious enough, you're going to be arrested. Don't do it, okay? If you are involved in some kind of altercation in a battery, and there's serious bodily harm, I can promise you 100 times out of 100 you will be arrested for that and taken to a hearing. All right, F, intentionally making physical contact of an insulting or provoking nature or threatening harm to a teacher, school bus driver, or other school employee official. That is immediate suspension with a disciplinary tribunal. Possible recommendation for you to be expelled. 2G, intentionally making physical contact which causes physical harm to a teacher, school bus driver, or other school official or employee. Again, immediate suspension with a hearing. All right, under number 2 also is bullying, which we hear a lot about. Bullying has been in the news the last few years to a great deal, and there's a legal definition of it that the state has, and it's broad. So let me read it to you. An act that is, number 1, any willful attempt any willful attempt or threat to inflict injury on another person when accompanied by an apparent present ability to do so. So if you threaten somebody and you have the ability, that's considered bullying to a certain degree. Number 2, any intentional display of force such as would give the victim reason to fear or expect immediate bodily harm. 3, any intentional written, verbal, or physical act which a reasonable person would perceive as being intended to threaten, harass, or intimidate, that A, causes another person substantial physical harm within the meaning of the law, or visible bodily harm as such visible bodily harm as such term is defined in code section, and I'm not going to read those numbers, you see those. B, has the effect of substantially interfering with a student's education, is so severe, persistent, or pervasive that it creates an intimidating or threatening educational environment, or D, has the effect of substantially disrupting the orderly operation of the school. The term applies to acts which occur on school property, on school vehicles, at designated school bus stops, or at school-related functions or activities, or by use of data or software that is accessed through a computer system, computer network, or other electronic technology of a local school system. The term also applies to acts of cyberbullying which occur through the use of electronic communication, whether or not such electronic act originated on school property or with school equipment. If the electronic communication is directed specifically at students or school personnel. 2, it is maliciously intended for the purpose of threatening the safety of those specified or substantially disrupting the orderly operation of the school. And 3, creates a reasonable fear of harm to the students or school personnel's person or property, or has a high likelihood of succeeding in that purpose. For purposes of this code section, electronic communication includes, but is not limited to, any transfer of signs, signals, writings, images, sounds, data, or intelligence of any nature transmitted in whole or in part by wire, radio, electromagnetic, photoelectronic, or photo-optical system. Now, with that all said, and I know that's a lot of legal language that y'all have a hard time understanding. Basically, let me tell you this. If you're threatening somebody, if you have an ability to hurt that person, which most people have the ability to hurt somebody on some level, and it's pervasive, meaning it happens a lot, it's persistent, you constantly do it. It could be something you said, it could be something you put on Facebook or Instagram or whatever you guys use, Snapchat, anything like that. You probably wouldn't use Instagram, but that one just popped in my head. But if you use Facebook or you text somebody or whatever, whether it's on school or out of school, you could get in trouble for that. I mean, that could be considered part of bullying. And the state of Georgia has really taken bullying seriously. So here, once again, we're talking about if you just have respect for one another and try to resolve differences ahead of time, come see me, then you don't have to worry about any of this. So now, the consequences. Acts of bullying shall be punished by a range of consequences through a progressive discipline process, which may include, but is not limited to, counseling with the student or the parents, administration, detention, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, or referral for a tribunal hearing. Now listen to this part. Upon finding by a tribunal panel that a student has committed the offense of bullying for the 3rd time in a school year, the student shall be assigned to an alternative school. So if you bully somebody 3 times in a school year, you could end up at crossroads, essentially. So make sure you don't. Upon finding by a school administrator that a student has committed an act of bullying or is a victim, we have to notify everybody involved, and I do that on a regular basis. And it mentions there, if you think you're being bullied, you should report it immediately to a teacher, administrator, or counselor. Please do. If somebody's bothering you, let me know so I can help. I think that's the 3rd time I've made reference to that. All right, number 3, students shall be free of drugs and alcohol. The violation, unlawful possession or use of illegal drugs or alcohol, including misuse of prescription drugs or drug paraphernalia, meaning like a pipe or something like that, or vapor pens. Now, last year we had several students go to hearings over vape pens, and they said to me, I didn't know we couldn't have those. That's nonsense. It's in the discipline code. I read it every year. It was brand new last year, so I'm just stressing this year. I know they're common now. A lot of people have them. Don't have them here at school. That is an automatic hearing. That is considered drug paraphernalia, so don't have it. Or under the influence of drugs or alcohol, including misuse of prescription drugs and all types of synthetic marijuana and synthetic substances known as bath salts, which mimic the effects of methamphetamine on school property. B, sale of or distribution of drugs, including prescription drugs, alcohol, vapor pens, or all types of synthetic marijuana and synthetic substances known as bath salts, which mimic the effects of methamphetamine on school property or at a school function. That is an immediate suspension with a hearing. All right, C, possession of, sale of, or under the influence of, misuse of over-the-counter drugs, herbs, or distribution of over-the-counter drugs or material implied or represented as drugs or alcohol on school property or at a school function. D, inhaling or under the influence of substances on school property or at a school function, including aerosol sprays, glue, magic markers. All these, those C and D are my discretion of what kind of consequences you get. 4, students shall be free of tobacco and tobacco-related paraphernalia. 4A, here's the violations. You can't do these things. Possession or distribution of tobacco products on school property or school function. B, use of tobacco on school property or school function. C, possession of paraphernalia, including lighters, matches on school property or school function. D, possession of electronic cigarettes or material implied or represented as tobacco, including but not limited to herbs, coffee packets, or any other material packaged in a way to resemble smokeless tobacco. And sometimes kids get the vapor pen and the e-cigarettes confused. An e-cigarette is treated as tobacco. You're not necessarily going to a hearing on that one. The vapor pen is considered drug paraphernalia. That's a degree of difference in those. All these that I just read, though, the penalty is up to my discretion of what you could get. Number 5, students shall be free of sexual harassment. The violation, what you can't do. Sexual harassment. 5A, unwelcome sexual conduct, advances, or propositions, verbal, written abuse of a sexual nature, graphic or degrading verbal comments, jokes, or teasing about an individual or his or her appearance, verbal conduct of a sexual nature or stalking. And B, unwelcome sexual conduct of a physical nature such as touching or pinching. Now look at the consequences. Penalty for A and B may include counseling, conference with parents, detention, ISS or OSS, or possibly being expelled. And students should report any kind of sexual harassment to someone here at school, a teacher, counselor, whoever. Now, what's important is down there at the bottom. Not at the very bottom, but the paragraph above that. All reports of unwanted sexual misconduct must be reported to the school resource officer, who will immediately report to the Whitfield County Sheriff's Department detective. The school's investigation of the incident must cease immediately. Now, here's what happens. If a student comes to Deputy Hayes or myself or a teacher, whatever, we find out that an individual has touched someone else inappropriately, I don't have any power in that situation at that point. I turn it over to the Whitfield County Sheriff's Department. That's what I have to do. So, they conduct an investigation. They'll call a detective. The detective will come down here and interview people. It's serious. Sometimes they'll turn it back over to me and let me administer school discipline. Sometimes they handle it. So, you don't want them to have to handle it because then you're dealing with law enforcement. So make sure that you're doing what you have to do. Miss Jeanette's waving at me through the window. All right, number 6. Students shall follow established guidelines when riding a school bus and at school bus stops. 6A, misbehavior on school bus. Unruly behavior or any act that might endanger the life or well-being of any student, adult on the bus, or persons or pedestrians. Pedestrians are people walking outside the bus. B, any unsatisfactory conduct such as disrespectful conduct, including the use of vulgar or profane language toward the school bus driver or other persons on the school bus, or cutting, defacing, or otherwise damaging in any way property belonging to the school district. The penalty is at my discretion. Now let me tell you this about school buses. Guys, we've got cameras on the school bus. We've got audio on the school bus. We can hear you. We can see you. I can't believe when we pull up a bus video, the things that I hear and the things that I see in terms, and you'll ask students, hey, did you know you were being recorded? Yeah, I knew there was a camera back there. We can pull up any bus video at any time. Don't do something on there that's going to get you trouble that you shouldn't be doing. 6C, any act of physical assault battery is defined in item 2 of this document on the school bus is prohibited, is what that means. And then you've got a list of 13 requirements for expectations on the bus and bus safety procedures. Make sure if you ride the bus that you look through those. If you have any questions, please ask me. Basically says follow directions of the driver. Be at the bus stop 5 minutes before the bus arrives and waiting in a safe place. Clear traffic and 10 feet away from the bus stop. cross it at the roadway in front of the bus. After the bus has stopped, they've looked at the driver for a hand signal, and they have looked in both directions for traffic. The bus driver or monitor has the right to make reasonable requests, including assigning student seats. Students will remain properly seated, back against the back of the seat, bottom against the bottom of the seat. Keep hands to yourself. Student will not eat, drink, chew gum, or bring tobacco, alcohol, all that stuff you can't bring to school, you can't bring on a bus either. And you can't have it at the bus stop. Students will not carry animals, glass objects, nuisance items, hazardous materials. Students may carry only objects that can be held on their laps. Students should not use loud voices, profanity, or other obscene gestures, and respect the rights and safety of others. Don't put your head, arms, anything out the window. Students will be totally silent in railroad crossings. Students will stay seated until time to get off the bus. The open bus door is a signal to get up from the bus seat. Students must provide a written note signed by a parent or guardian, and a school official give permission to ride a different bus, or to get on or off the bus at a different bus stop location. Students will help keep the bus clean. 7. Students shall respect the staff members and other students, persons attending school-related functions, and rules set forth within each school. The violation 7A, disrespectful and or failure to follow school rules, rude and disrespectful behavior, including use of vulgar or profane language. Thought I had the lid on that. You saw me try to take the lid off that didn't exist. 7B, refusal to carry out instruction of faculty or staff member, including giving false or misleading information to faculty or staff members, such as but not limited to names or school. C, falsifying, that means lying, misrepresenting, omitting, or erroneously reporting information regarding instances of alleged inappropriate behavior by a teacher, administrator, or other school employee towards a student. D, verbal assault of physical battery or battery of, and disrespectful conduct, including use of vulgar or profane language toward persons attending school-related functions. Basically, and especially C, look at C in particular. If you make up something about a teacher or some school employee, it didn't happen, you could get some pretty heavy consequences. All these are up to my discretion in terms of what you get though. 8, students will cooperate in maintaining a proper learning environment. 8A, you cannot incite, advise, or counsel others to engage in prohibited acts. That means don't encourage people to do things that are wrong. B, classroom and or school disturbances causing disruption of learning activities. If something happens in class and you're causing other people not to be able to learn, there's consequences for that. C, acts which cause substantial disruption of learning activities and threaten the safety or health of others. That one, C, if you look over to the consequences, that's an immediate suspension with a hearing. Make sure you think twice before you do something that's going to cause a major school disruption. C, committing any act off campus which could result in the student being criminally charged with a felony and which makes the student's continued presence at school such a potential danger to persons or property at school, or which disrupts the educational process. The penalty is up to my discretion. I can tell you this, that if you do something off campus and we think you're a danger to kids on campus, we're going to try to take you to a hearing. So, all right, 9, students will be free from gang involvement, gang activity. You cannot wear or display gang clothing, articles, or paraphernalia which has been established by the school administration as being gang related, or representing oneself as a gang member in either through words or action. The consequence for that one, penalties at my discretion, depending on the circumstances. I will tell you this, usually if we suspect somebody is involved in gang membership, we call law enforcement. We call the gang detective down here. Number 10, students will accept disciplinary actions. The violation, failure to accept disciplinary action. Penalty could include ISS, OSS, it's really up to me. If we send you to ISS and you just don't obey the rules, you're going to get something worse. If you do that repeatedly, you're going to go to a hearing and you could end up at crossroads. Number 11, students will refrain from inappropriate language and actions. 11A, you cannot use profane, vulgar, obscene words or gestures or racial or ethnic slurs. B, you cannot engage in indecent exposure, inappropriate public display of affection. You cannot do that. Any sexual act on school property or at a school activity is not allowed, of course. And on that one, we contact a detective. 11D, possession or transmission of obscene, profane, vulgar materials, including but not limited to images within cell phones, cameras, or other electronic devices. 11E, other such actions which disrupt the school program or threaten the health or safety of others. 11F, inappropriate use of technology, including using computers or internet or cell phones for extortion, hazing, and harassing of students and or staff on campus or off campus if such actions are disruptive to the school. And G, deliberate attempts to bypass internet security if you try to get through some of our safety nets on internet and all. The penalty for each of these may include detention, ISS, OSS. It's really, again, up to my discretion. Any sexual activity on school grounds or school activity may result in the involvement of law enforcement. I can tell you when that happens, when a few times it has happened, we do call law enforcement. So, 12, willful and repeated violation of school rules. If you keep breaking school rules over and over and over again, I'm seeing you in my office a lot right here. Well, if that happens, you're going to get heavier and heavier consequences to the point where you could end up at a hearing in Crossroads, just because. If I've got a student who keeps on breaking the rules and accumulates a lot of referrals, to me, they're just not able to function in this environment. We're going to find you somewhere where you can function. It's not going to be Southeast High School. All right, 13. Students will respect the property of others. Violation 13A. You can't do this. 13A. Destruction of and or threats to destroy public or private property, which may include such actions as the use or threat of bombs, explosion devices, setting fires, damaging lockers, which we don't have lockers, and the deliberate marking, destruction, and defacement of property that belongs to the school or another student, including during off-school hours. Also includes willful or malicious damage to real or personal property of the school or to personal property of any person legitimately at school, including during off-school hours. Now let me say this. The penalty is up to my discretion. Typically, if something is damaged or stolen, we give you a chance to take care of that on your own. We ask you to do the right thing, own up to what you did, take care of it. 9 times out of 10, in that situation, we ask you to replace what you've taken or to fix what you've broken, what you've damaged. And then you may end up at ISS or OSS. If we can't figure out, or if we don't have someone admit to, hey, I did this, I'm sorry, then what we do is when we conduct an investigation, and we usually find out who did it, we have that person arrested and charged. So be aware of that. 13B, you don't have to worry about because we don't have lockers. 13C, theft of public or private property, which may includes possession of stolen property. And if you hold something for somebody you know they stole, then you're just as guilty as they are. D, vandalism. You can't vandalize private or public property. All right. And if you look at the very bottom of that one, at 13, any situation involving such actions as the use of threat or bombs, explosion devices, setting fires, and the deliberate destruction or defacement of school property could result in the involvement of law enforcement officials, possibly resulting in removal and arrest. 14, this has to do with attendance. 14A, repeated tardiness. B, skipping class. C, unexcused absences. Those first two, you're going to end up in ISS. Don't do it. And and I don't mind. I know that kids got to go to the bathroom, but when you're gone forever, you're roaming the halls, that's skipping class. You may say, I have a bathroom pass. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you get a bathroom pass, have enough respect for that teacher to go to the bathroom, come back. Don't take advantage. That teacher is trusting you. They're saying, hey, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to give you this pass. Go take care of what you got to. Come on back. All right, 15. Students will remain on campus unless permitted to leave. You can't leave campus without permission. 16. Students will be free of fireworks. You cannot possess any explosive devices or fireworks. 17. Students will activate fire alarms or make such reports only when an emergency situation exists. You cannot pull a fire alarm unnecessarily or make a false report. That's pretty serious. The penalty is at our discretion, but it could result in immediate suspension with a hearing for possible or possible recommendation for expulsion for the remainder of the school year. 18, students will not participate in gambling activities or possess items for gambling. You're not supposed to possess dice, playing cards, or other gambling items. Don't be gambling in school. 19, students will submit to being searched for reasonable suspicions. You cannot refuse to be searched. If you do refuse to be searched, and what that means is, now, and we're talking about teachers don't search you, but administrators can. Myself, Ms. Penley, Ms. Locke, Ms. Story, if we have a reasonable suspicion, we can search you, we can search your cell phone, we can search your vehicle that you brought on campus. Anything you bring on campus, we can search. If you refuse to have it searched, look at the consequence. It's immediate suspension with a hearing. And we've had people go through that before. So just be aware of that. A lot of people say to me all the time, you have to have a warrant, don't you? No. Deputy Hayes has to have a warrant, but I don't, and Ms. Penley does not. So if we ask you to turn over something, whether it's a book bag or phone, you have to. 20, students will complete their own work. If you cheat, there's consequences. You know you're not supposed to cheat. 21, make sure you pay for any kind of money you owe at school, whether it's lunch charges or damaged material or whatever. 22, students will not use either one-way or two-way communication devices or laser pointers in school buildings or on school buses. The violation 22A, students will not be permitted to use any personal electronic communication device, including cell phones, during the school day without teacher or administrator permission. If seen or heard, electronic devices will be confiscated and may be searched by school officials. Now, let me say something about that. I know there are some classes and some places in the building where you're allowed to use your cell phone. If your teacher, if you know you're not supposed to have it out in class, if you've got something going on and your teacher doesn't want it out, put it up. If they take it up, they're going to turn it to me and I'm going to search it. So make sure you keep them put up. The first penalty, first offense rather, confiscation of the device and parent conference. Device will be returned to the parent or legal guardian only. The second offense, the second time you do this, confiscation of the device, an additional penalty at my discretion. So, and also, I'm gonna tell you something. One of the things I see sometimes on phones is where you guys take pictures of people or videos of people without their permission. Don't. That's a violation to me of their privacy. So don't do it. B, possession of digital music players, other such electronic devices that might interfere with the school bus driver's operation of the school bus, regardless of whether such possession is in school buildings, on school buses, or at school-sponsored activities. Can't do that. 22C, possession of laser pointers or other laser devices. Don't have those. Can't use mirrors, flash cameras, or any other lights or reflective devices that might interfere with the bus driver's operation of the school bus. 23. We'll come back to that at the end. I want to talk about the dress code at the end. 24. If you drive campus, you have a parking permit violation, or you leave campus without permission. First offense, loss of driving privilege to school, additional penalty at my discretion. Second, and other offenses, loss of driving privileges to school. Talking about parking, make sure you get your parking permit. You hear me, upperclassmen? If you drive, buy your parking permit. You need to have your license, you need to have your insurance, you need to have your registration, and your license number on your permit number. Make sure you bring $10. That's what it costs. You're going to have a decal. It's not a decal. It actually hangs on your rearview mirror. Hang it up there. Have it. It's got a number on it. Park in the space that corresponds with that number. Last year I had a really hard time. Once one person parks out of their space, everybody else is messed up because it just causes a chain reaction. So get your permit. Go ahead and park in your appropriate space. If you're driving to campus without permission, if you don't have a parking permit, you could be towed, and we have done that before. All right, let's talk about this dress code rather. I was going to say discipline code, but let's talk about dress code for just a minute, and we'll be done. I know it's a lot of stuff, and it's really exciting. Yeah, All right, student dress code. Acceptable standards for proper attire. And this is in your book as well. Shirts and blouses, all colors and all color combinations are acceptable. Styles, all styles which conform to rules concerning fit. You can't have anything really tight. fabric, all except sheer, see-through, or unlined lace. I've already seen some tops that are sheer that you can see through. You can't wear those, guys. The fit, it has to be sized appropriately, fitted modestly, no cleavage showing, sleeveless with material extending from collarbone to the end of the shoulder. So you can't have just a spaghetti strap or tank top. It's got to go from the shoulder to the collarbone. It's got to be buttoned appropriately, long enough to cover the midriff, which is your belly, at all times with no skin showing at midriff. Skirts, dresses, jumpers, any color, any combination is acceptable. The length no shorter than knee length when standing. It's not the fingertip rule when you're standing, it's to your knees. The fabric, all except sheer, see-through or unlined lace. Fit, sized appropriately, fitted modestly, no cleavage showing, sleeveless, with material extending from the collarbone to the end of the shoulder bone. Skirts, properly fitted and secured at the waist. Jumpers must be worn with blouse meeting the dress code. No splits above the knees or in skirts or dresses. Pants, slacks, and shorts. Styles that are acceptable: dress, chino, denim, which is jeans, cargo, sweatpants, etc. No overalls, pajama pants, or similar styles. Fabric, all except sheer, see-through, or unlined lace. Again, you can see the pattern here. Leggings, yoga pants, any form-fitting pants must be worn with an appropriately sized covering that comes to mid-thigh while standing and made of material that meets dress code. In other words, if you've got, girls, if you've got on leggings, if you've got on tight, like athletic style pants, you've got to have a dress or skirt that comes to mid-thigh. It doesn't have to come to your knee, but come to mid-thigh to cover certain areas. All right. Let's see. Fit, sized appropriately, no baggy or oversized pant legs. Shorts at knee when standing. Shorts may be dress, chino, denim, jeans, or cargo. Gym, athletic, and basketball shorts are acceptable, and that they must be at knee length. All styles fitted and secured at the waist. Shoes and boots must be appropriately fastened, tied, buckled, etc. Flip-flops are acceptable. No shoes with wheels, which I don't see those really anymore. Number 5, sweaters, jackets, outerwear. All dress code rules will apply to sweaters, jackets, outerwear when worn inside the school building. Hoodies must fit appropriately and not be oversized. No trench coats in the building or outside the building. Section B, inappropriate dress. The following fads, styles, and types of clothing and appearances are deemed inappropriate. If clothing is worn with rips, holes, tears above the knee, all holes must be permanently patched with fabric meeting dress code standards. Underwear, leggings, and other or shorts, underpants with holes do not meet dress code requirements. If you've got holes in your jeans, your pants, they cannot be above the knee. If you have rips or tears in your jeans above the knee, they've got to have a patch to cover those up. So I'm just making you aware of that. All right. Baggy or oversized clothing is not allowed. Pajamas or similar styles. Revealing or immodest clothing is not allowed. Clothing or tattoos with writings, numbers, pictures, graphics, monograms, symbols, or drawings that promote gang or cult membership, trademark slogans or advertising advocating the use of alcohol, tobacco, drugs, drug paraphernalia, or other unlawful activity, discrimination based upon cultural, religious, racial, or sexual orientations. All that stuff is not allowed. Clothing or jewelry deemed a safety risk or unlawful. You cannot have that. Pants, shirts, coats, or clothing of any kind touching the ground, not allowed. Hair of any style that is disruptive to the learning environment. You can't have hair of that style. Headwear, that would be caps, scarves, bandanas, sunglasses, hoods, etc. at any time in the school building are not allowed. Any objects in pierced body parts other than the ear. I hear a lot of people say, well, here we can have the little clear stud in my nose or whatever. No, you can't. The only place you can have a piercing in the building is your ear. And a lot of people will say to me, well, I just got this. This guy's staying for 6 weeks. I'm sorry, you know the rule. You're not supposed to have it, okay? You shouldn't have got it in the first place. Wait till June to get it next year, and then you can have it 6 weeks at home. You cannot have any writing on the rear of your pants or shorts. And spikes and gauges are not allowed either in your ears. That's important. The administrator's decision will stand as the accepted judgment in the preceding examples of inappropriate dress. So when it comes down to it, it's really up to myself, Ms. Penley, Ms. Story, Ms. Locke to determine how a lot of this is interpreted. And some of it is difficult to interpret because there's some things that are such, on the borderline, is this appropriate or inappropriate? Teachers, if you have a female dress code issue, please address that to one of the female administrators, but make sure you do refer these things. And students, that's the whole discipline code book. And again, I know some of it may be confusing to you. If you have any questions, please stop me and ask me. Stop Ms. Penley and ask her. If I'm not sure, I'll come back and I'll look at the code book and try to interpret it and try to make sure we're giving you good information. So I hope you have a great school year. Thank you for listening.